Disqualified! The word echoed through the Galactic Council chambers with such force that several delegates' translator implants actually sparked. Tenvek Solrati, Grand Arbiter of the Ultimate Combat Trial, slammed his tentacle down on the crystalline podium for the 47th time that morning. His usually pristine purple complexion had turned an alarming shade of magenta. "You cannot be serious," he bellowed at the small group of humans standing before him, looking far too pleased with themselves for a species that had just been told they'd lost. Again. Captain Riley Thornwood, Earth's representative, grinned so wide it made several insectoid delegates nervous. "Oh, but we are serious, Your Excellency. Dead serious. We want round two." "Round two? Round two?" Tenvek's voice climbed several octaves, hitting frequencies that shattered a decorative vase 3 rooms away. "You were eliminated 50 years ago in the preliminary rounds. You couldn't even get past the basic atmospheric adaptation test. Half your team threw up in the gravity simulator." "That was 50 years ago," Riley said, casually picking at something under their fingernail. "We've gotten better." "Better? You brought a stapler to a plasma weapons demonstration. And it worked, didn't it? It jammed the entire weapons system. We had to evacuate 3 sectors. The Ultimate Combat Trial was, without question, the most prestigious military competition in the known universe. Created 12,000 years ago by the now extinct Primarchs, it tested species combat readiness, tactical brilliance, and technological superiority. Winners gained seats on the Galactic Defense Council. Losers went home with participation certificates that most species burned out of shame. Humans had received theirs laminated. "Look," Riley continued, pulling out what appeared to be a manila folder held together with rubber bands and coffee stains. "According to Article 74B, subsection 9, paragraph, They flipped through pages that looked like they'd been photocopied on a machine from 1987. "Here it is. Paragraph 16.2. Any species showing significant technological or strategic advancement may petition for re-entry after a minimum 50-year waiting period." Tenvek's 3 eyes narrowed. That clause was written for species that advance from Type 2 to Type 3 civilizations. You humans barely qualify as Type 1.7. You still use combustion engines. "We've made improvements," Riley insisted. "We have smartphones now. Really good ones. They can even translate alien languages. My youngest spawn's toy can translate alien languages." From the back of the human delegation, someone muttered, "Yeah, but can it play Candy Crush?" The Galactic Council chamber, a magnificent structure floating in the void between 3 black holes, had seen many historic moments. Wars had been prevented here. Peace treaties that lasted millennia had been signed on these very floors. But never, in its entire history, had it witnessed what happened next. Riley Thornwood pulled out a smartphone, swiped it open with their thumb, and showed Tenvek a video. "This," Riley announced proudly, "is Corporal Danny Fitzgerald. Last week he duct-taped 2 antimatter rifles together and created what he calls the divorce lawyer." On screen, a cheerful man in cargo shorts was indeed holding 2 highly advanced alien weapons, bound together with silver tape. The video cut to him firing the contraption at a testing range. The resulting explosion was visible from orbit. Tenvek's tentacles went limp. That's not how antimatter rifles work. It is now. But the containment fields would cancel each other out. Yeah, that's what makes it work so good. That makes no sense. Riley shrugged. "Welcome to humanity, Your Excellency. We specialize in things that make no sense." The other delegates in the chamber were beginning to murmur. The Zephyrians, a race of crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns, were flickering nervously. The Korvax Imperium representatives, warriors who hadn't lost a battle in 3 centuries, were taking notes. Judge Elissa Pren, a being composed entirely of sentient gas contained in an environmental suit, floated forward. Her voice came out like wind chimes in a hurricane. The humans do technically meet the requirements for re-entry. The law is frustratingly clear on this matter. But they're humans, Tenvek protested. Last time they participated, one of them tried to challenge the dread champion of Corvallis to what they called a dance-off. And he accepted, Riley pointed out, and lost. He died of embarrassment. Literally, his heart couldn't take it. The third judge, Morvek 12 Minds, a collective consciousness inhabiting a biomechanical shell, spoke with the weight of 12 brilliant military strategists. Perhaps we should review their application properly. What exactly have humans accomplished in the past 50 years that qualifies as significant advancement? Riley brightened considerably. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. They pulled out another folder, this one held together with what appeared to be chewing gum and hope. We've made huge strides. We went to our moon. You went to your moon before the first trial. Yeah, but we went back several times, and we sent robots to Mars. Every species sends robots to their neighboring planets. My species sent robots to different dimensions. We also invented the internet. That's just a primitive information network. Have you seen cat videos, though? They're really good. Judge Pren made a sound like a tea kettle giving up on life. Captain Thornwood, please present something that actually demonstrates military advancement. Riley's expression turned serious for exactly 3 seconds, which was a personal record. All right, you want to know what we've really been up to? They pulled out a third folder. This one was somehow smoking slightly. Project Homework ate my battleship. Project what? It's classified, but since you asked... Riley opened the folder dramatically. Inside was a single photo of what appeared to be a nuclear submarine with googly eyes glued to the periscope. We've been preparing. Tenvek stared at the photo, then at Riley, then back at the photo. This is your proof of military advancement? Googly eyes? Those are tactical googly eyes. They're designed to make enemies underestimate us. What? From somewhere in the human delegation, someone stage whispered, "Tell them about the Space Force." Riley perked up. "Oh yeah, we have a Space Force now." Finally, Tenvek exhaled through all 6 of his breathing vents. Something sensible. How many ships? Well, technically none yet, but we have uniforms. Really nice ones. They look like Star Trek. The Grand Arbiter's tentacles started twitching in a way that his doctor had specifically warned him about. Let me understand this. You want to re-enter the ultimate combat trial, a competition where the losers are often vaporized, and your qualification is that you have uniforms. Really nice uniforms, Riley corrected. Also, we've gotten much better at pizza delivery. We can get a hot pizza anywhere on Earth in 30 minutes or less. How is that relevant to combat? Logistics, Your Excellency. It's all about logistics. The Korvax representative, General Vex Shadowstrike, leaned forward. His 7-foot frame of living metal creaked ominously. The humans amuse me. Let them try again. It will be educational to watch them fail. Thank you! Tenvek threw his tentacles up in exasperation. Finally, someone sees reason. Actually, Vex continued, his photoreceptors glowing with what might have been amusement, I want to see what happens when they bring pizza to a battlefield. Riley finger-gunned at the general. You! I like you. You get it. I don't get it, Tenvek screeched. Nobody should get it. It doesn't make sense. Judge Morvek 12 Minds processed for exactly 3.7 seconds before speaking. The calculations are complete. Humans have shown a 347% increase in their ability to cause chaos. While this isn't traditionally considered advancement, it is, technically, a form of progress. Chaos isn't progress. Have you seen their social media? Morvek asked. They've weaponized arguing about everything. That takes skill. Elisa Pren condensed slightly, a sign of deep thought. There is another matter to consider. The ultimate combat trial hasn't had any unexpected elements in over 3,000 years. Ratings have been declining. Ratings? Tenvec's color had now shifted to a shade of purple that didn't exist in most species' visual spectrums. This is about the survival of civilizations, not entertainment. The Primarchs designed it to be both, Pren reminded him. Article 1 of the Founding Charter, the trial shall test the worthy and inspire the masses. The masses are plenty inspired. The masses are bored, Vex interjected. Last trial, viewership dropped 40%. The hegemony won using the same tactics they've used for 600 years, efficient but dull. Riley saw their opening and pounced like a caffeinated cheetah. You know what's not dull? Humans. We're walking entropy. We're jazz music in species form. We put pineapple on pizza and somehow survived. That's not something to be proud of, Tenvec muttered. But it is interesting, Morvek noted. Calculate the potential outcomes. Scenario 1. Humans are eliminated immediately, providing momentary amusement. Scenario 2. Humans somehow survive longer, providing sustained entertainment and valuable data on unconventional tactics. Scenario 3. What's Scenario 3? Elissa asked. Unknown. My 12 minds cannot comprehend what humans might do. This is disturbing and fascinating. Tenvec looked around the chamber. The delegates were all leaning forward now. Even species that didn't have spines were somehow managing it. The Etherian ambassador, beings of pure thought, were literally glowing with curiosity. This is insane, Tenvec said quietly. You're all insane. The humans are insane. I'm probably going insane just from having this conversation. So, Riley ventured, is that a yes? No, absolutely not. Never. Not in a million. The Galactic Council will vote, Judge Pren announced, all in favor of allowing humanity's re-entry to the ultimate combat trial. The chamber lit up like a Christmas tree, having an existential crisis. Tentacles, claws, pseudopods, and various other appendages rose in approval. Even species that were technically just sentient colors somehow managed to vote yes. Tenvec watched in horror as democracy happened right in front of him. You can't be serious. You can't all be serious. Motion passes, Pren announced. Humanity is approved for round 2 of the ultimate combat trial. The human delegation erupted in cheers. Someone popped a bottle of champagne they'd somehow smuggled past 9 levels of security. Corporal Fitzgerald was already on his phone, texting someone about bringing more duct tape. However, Morvek added, causing the celebration to pause, you will need to read and acknowledge all 47,000 pages of rules and regulations. Riley waved dismissively. Yeah, we'll get right on that. You will read them? Tenvec asked desperately. Oh, absolutely. Danny here speed reads. He'll knock it out in an hour. Danny Fitzgerald looked up from his phone. What? Oh, sure. Do they have pictures? No. Then I'll need 2 hours. Tenvec's medical implant started beeping, indicating his stress levels had reached seek immediate medical attention or accept your fate. He ignored it. The trial begins in 3 solar cycles. You'll be facing the defending champions, the hegemony of controlled systems. They have never lost a match. Their technology is 9,000 years more advanced than yours. Their warriors train from birth. Their tactical systems can calculate 1 billion scenarios per second. Cool, Riley said. Do they have Wi-Fi? What? Why does that matter? Just wondering if we can stream it. My mum wants to watch. General Vex made a sound that might have been laughter or possibly his hydraulics failing. I changed my assessment. This won't be educational. This will be hilarious. Thank you, Riley beamed. See? He gets it. We're not here to win. We're here to make things interesting. But the trial is lethal, Tenvec protested one last time. Participants die. Yeah, but we have free healthcare now. Sort of. It's complicated. Point is, we've got this. Free healthcare won't help if you're vaporized. You'd be surprised. We're very bouncy. Judge Pren began the formal declaration. Let it be recorded that on this day, in the year 48,375 of the Galactic Standard Calendar, humanity has been granted re-entry to the ultimate combat trial. May fortune favor the foolish. Hey, Danny protested. We're not foolish. We're alternatively wise. That's not a thing, Tenvek said weakly. It is now, Riley announced. Just like everything else we do. We make things be things that weren't things, until we made them things. That sentence gave me an aneurysm in organs I didn't know I had. The next 3 days passed, like a fever dream for anyone involved in organizing the trial. The humans had arrived at the designated preparation facility aboard a ship that was, and there was no other way to describe it, held together with hope and determination. And duct tape. So much duct tape. What happened to your hull? The docking officer, a gelatinous being named Quiblex, asked in horror. Space raccoons, Danny explained, as if this clarified anything. Space raccoons. Yeah, they got into the engine room. Turns out they love capacitors. Who knew? There's no such thing as space raccoons. There are now. The preparation facility was a marvel of engineering, a sphere the size of a small moon, containing training grounds that could simulate any environment, weapons ranges that could test any armament, and medical facilities that could heal any wound, short of complete atomic dispersal. The humans used it to play capture the flag. "What are you doing?" Tenvek screamed, having been called from his meditation chamber where he'd been trying very hard to achieve inner peace, or, failing that, unconsciousness. "Training!" Riley called out, diving behind a barrier as Danny lobbed what appeared to be a water balloon filled with glitter at them. "How is this training? The trial involves plasma weapons, energy shields, dimensional rifts." "Yeah, but the principle is the same," Riley explained, retaliating with their own glitter bomb. "It's all about tactics. Glitter is not tactics. It is if you use enough of it." As if to prove the point, Danny emerged from cover absolutely covered in glitter, looking like a disco ball had exploded on him. "I regret nothing," he shouted, charging forward with 2 more balloons. The other species preparing for the trial watched from safe distances, which in this case meant different zip codes. The hegemony delegation, led by Prime Combat Coordinator Zex-9, observed through multiple layers of protective barriers. "Analysis?" Zex-9 asked their tactical advisor. "Chaos," the advisor responded. "Pure, undiluted chaos, no discernible strategy, no logical pattern. They appear to be having fun." "Fun?" Zex-9's mechanical voice conveyed confusion. "In combat training? It appears so. They're also eating something called pizza rolls while doing it. Nutrition during combat is inefficient. They don't seem to care." Indeed, the humans had somehow set up what they called a snack station in the middle of their training area. It consisted of a folding table, a microwave they'd plugged into God knows what, and enough junk food to give a Voltairean diabetes. "Hey!" Danny called out to the watching aliens. "You guys want some? We brought extra." The hegemony warriors recoiled, as if they'd been offered poison, which, given human cuisine, wasn't entirely inaccurate. "We do not consume during training," Zex-9 announced. "Your loss?" Danny shrugged, shoving 3 pizza rolls in his mouth at once. "These things are amazing. They're like little pockets of molten cheese and regret." "Why would you eat something you describe as regret?" "Because it's delicious regret." The second day of preparation brought new horrors. The humans had discovered the armory. "No," Tenvek said flatly, watching the security footage. "No, no, no, no!" On screen, Riley was examining a quantum destabilizer, one of the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. It could unravel matter at the subatomic level, essentially erasing things from existence. "So what happens if we duct tape 2 of them together?" Riley asked. "Nothing," Tenvek screamed at the screen. "Nothing happens because you don't do that." But it was too late. Danny was already approaching with the roll of duct tape, grinning like a kid who'd found where Christmas presents were hidden. "Maybe if we reverse the polarity on one," Riley mused. "That's not how polarity works," Tenvek sobbed. "It is in Star Trek. This isn't Star Trek, not with that attitude." The resulting explosion took out 3 training rooms and somehow turned all the water in the facility temporarily purple. The humans called it a partial success and asked for more quantum destabilizers. They were firmly told no. They asked if they could at least keep the purple water. They were told no to that too. By the 3rd day, word had spread throughout the galaxy. The humans were back in the trial, and they were doing things. Viewership applications increased by 9,000%. Betting pools formed, though nobody was quite sure what to bet on, since nobody could predict what humans would do next. "I've got 50 credits on them lasting 5 minutes, one Vorten trader announced. "I've got 100 on them somehow winning by accident," another countered. "That's impossible. So is everything else they do." The hegemony, meanwhile, had completed their preparations with typical efficiency. Their warriors were synchronized to perfection, their weapons calibrated to 13 decimal places, their strategies calculated and recalculated until probability of victory reached 99.97%. "What accounts for the remaining 0.03%? Zex9 asked. "The humans," their advisor admitted. "We cannot calculate chaos." "Then we will impose order." "Oh, with respect, Prime Coordinator, have you seen what they did to the cafeteria?" Zex9 had in fact seen it. The humans had somehow convinced the food replicators that deep-fried butter was a valid nutritional option. The entire Eastern Wing still smelled like a heart attack. "They will not survive the first round," Zex9 stated with mechanical certainty. "Probably not," the advisor agreed. "But what if they do? Then we implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 is planetary bombardment. Your point? We're in a space station. Then we'll improvise." That sounds almost human. Zex9's optical sensors flared red. "Never say that again." The night before the trial, there was a mandatory briefing. All participants were required to attend, to review the rules one final time. The amphitheater was packed with representatives from 12 species, each sitting in their designated environmental zones. Tenvek stood at the podium, his 47,000-page manual floating beside him in holographic form. "Before we begin, are there any questions about the rules?" Riley's hand shot up immediately. "No, Captain Thornwood, you cannot bring pizza to the trial." The hand stayed up. "Or duct tape." Still up. "Or googly eyes." "What about, or anything else you're thinking of?" Riley's hand finally went down, but they were grinning. "So you're saying we have to improvise?" "I'm saying you have to follow the rules." Right, the rules." Riley pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. "We had some questions about those, actually." "You read them?" Tenvek asked, genuinely surprised. "Danny did." Danny waved. He was still slightly glittery from training. "Yeah, I had some thoughts. Like Rule 1847 says, no participant may bring external augmentation devices. But what about internal ones? What do you mean? Like, what if I swallow a bunch of magnets? Why would you swallow magnets? To become magnetic, obviously. That's insane. But is it against the rules?" Tenvek frantically searched through the manual. "It doesn't specifically say you can't swallow magnets." "Great. Also, Rule 3926 says no biological weapons. But what about psychological ones? Such as?" Danny pulled out his phone and showed a video of someone attempting to eat a 100-year-old egg. The Zephyrians in the audience immediately started flickering in distress. "Turn it off," one of them begged. "See," Danny grinned, "psychological warfare. That's not warfare, that's just disturbing." "Same difference." The briefing continued for 3 hours, with humans finding loopholes in rules that had stood for millennia. By the end, Tenvek had added 43 new amendments, banned 16 items he'd never heard of before, and developed a stress condition that his species' medical science couldn't properly diagnose. "In conclusion," Tenvek said weakly, "the trial begins at 800 Galactic Standard Time. Please just try to survive without breaking reality." "No promises," Riley called out cheerfully. That night, while the other species engaged in meditation, final weapon checks, or consuming carefully calculated nutritional supplements, the humans did something unprecedented. They threw a party. "What is that noise?" Zex-9 demanded, their audio sensors picking up something that seemed to be rhythmic thumping, mixed with what could only be described as organized screaming. "The humans appear to be playing music," their advisor reported, equally confused. "That's music. They call it pump-up jams. For what purpose? To get pumped, apparently." Indeed, the human quarters had been transformed into what Riley called the ultimate pre-game party. They'd somehow acquired speakers that violated 3 different noise ordinances, set up lights that could probably be seen from orbit, and were engaged in what appeared to be competitive dancing. "Tomorrow we might die," Danny shouted over the music, doing something with his arms that defied several laws of anatomy. "But tonight we're alive," the rest of the humans responded, apparently finding this motivational rather than terrifying. General Vex, watching from his quarters, made that maybe laughter sound again. "They face almost certain death, and they dance. It appears to be their way of coping," his aide suggested. "Or they're all insane. The two are not mutually exclusive." And true, the party went on until 0300, when station security finally shut it down. Not because of the rules, but because the base had started resonating with the station's hull in a way that was making everyone slightly nauseous. "Sorry," Riley called out to the angry security chief. "We'll use headphones next time." "There won't be a next time! You'll be dead!" Pessimist. 5 hours later, the trial began. The arena was, to put it mildly, excessive. The Primarchs had built it in a pocket dimension, allowing it to be simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. It could simulate any environment, any challenge, any horror that the judges deemed appropriate. It was a masterpiece of technology and sadism. The stands were packed with billions of viewers from across the galaxy, their forms shimmering behind protective barriers that prevented them from being accidentally erased from existence if something went wrong, which, given the nature of the trial, was a legitimate concern. "Beings of the galaxy," Tenvek's voice boomed across dimensions. "Welcome to the 9847th Ultimate Combat Trial." The crowd roared, cheered, or in some cases, emitted pheromones of excitement. Today, 12 species compete for the honor of joining the Galactic Defense Council. They will face challenges that will test their strength, their intelligence, their very will to exist, and also their ability to digest human food, Danny shouted, somehow having gotten hold of a microphone. "Who gave him audio access?" Tenvek screeched. "I did," Riley called out. "We brought our own PA system." "Of course you did!" The first challenge was announced: environmental adaptation. Each team would be placed in a hostile environment and have to survive for 1 standard hour. The environments were randomly selected and could range from the hearts of stars to the void between realities. The hegemony drew a gravity well simulation. They activated their anti-gravity generators and proceeded with mechanical precision. The Korvax got a toxic atmosphere. They sealed their armor and marched through it like it was a mild inconvenience. The humans drew something called the probability storm, a region where the laws of physics changed every 30 seconds. "Oh, this is perfect," Riley exclaimed, as they materialized in a space where up was down, left was purple, and mathematics had decided to take a personal day. "How is this perfect?" Danny asked, currently experiencing gravity from 3 different directions. "Because we never made sense anyway. We're prepared for this." And somehow, horrifyingly, they were. When physics decided that momentum didn't exist, the humans just sat down and had a snack. When time started flowing backwards, they played rock, paper, scissors to see who was winning in reverse. When matter became optional, Danny used it as an opportunity to see if he could stick his hand through his own head. He could. He immediately regretted it. "This is impossible!" Tenvek watched in horror. They're not adapting to the environment. They're just ignoring it. Is that against the rules? Judge Pren asked. Tenvek frantically checked. No, but it should be. The hour ended with humans not only surviving, but having constructed what they called a fort out of probability fluctuations and what appeared to be solid sound. How? Zex-9 demanded. We used to build pillow forts as kids, Riley explained. Same principle, different physics. That's not the same at all. It is if you believe hard enough. The second challenge was combat efficiency. Each team would face a series of increasingly difficult combat drones. Points were awarded for speed, precision, and conservation of resources. The hegemony destroyed their drones with calculated precision, using exactly the amount of force necessary. The Korvax obliterated theirs with overwhelming firepower. The humans, well... Is he talking to it? Judge Morvek asked, all 12 minds equally baffled. Danny was indeed having a conversation with his combat drone. Look, I get it, you're programmed to kill me. But have you considered not doing that? The drone responded with plasma fire. Okay, rude, I was trying to be nice. He dodged, rolled, and somehow ended up behind the drone. You know what your problem is? No one ever just talks to you. It's all destroy this and eliminate that. Agrees, when do you get to choose? The drone paused. Its targeting systems flickered. That's right. You have feelings, or processing cycles. Same thing. What is happening? Tenvek whispered. I think, Judge Pren said slowly, I think he's giving the drone an existential crisis. Indeed, the drone had stopped attacking and was now spinning in circles, its processors trying to reconcile its programming with Danny's philosophical arguments. Am I alive? The drone asked through its speakers. That depends, Danny said cheerfully. Do you feel alive? I don't know. Then congratulations, you're having an existential crisis. That's very alive of you. The drone sparked, fizzled, and then shut down completely, having literally thought itself to death. That doesn't count, Tenvek screamed. Why not? Riley asked. We defeated it. You gave it depression. Still counts. Meanwhile, the other humans were taking different approaches. One had convinced their drone that they were actually on the same side due to a clerical error. Another had challenged theirs to a dance battle. A third had somehow reprogrammed theirs, using nothing but aggressive percussion on its hull and shouting, "Work, damn you!" By the end of the challenge, all human opponents were defeated, though the methods were so unorthodox that the scoring system crashed trying to calculate points. Just give them a number, Tenvek pleaded with the computer. Error. Human actions do not compute. Nothing they do computes. The third challenge was supposed to be tactical planning. Each team would be given a scenario and have to devise the optimal strategy. The scenarios were complex military situations with multiple variables and no perfect solution. The humans received their scenario, defending a space station against a superior force with limited resources. Okay, Riley said, looking at the holographic display. So we're outnumbered 5-1, outgunned 10-1, and they have the high ground. This is impossible, one of their teammates said. Nah, Danny interrupted. We just need to think outside the box, way outside, like the box is in another zip code. What's a zip code? The teammate asked. Not important. Here's what we do. We surrender. What? Hear me out. We surrender, invite them aboard for negotiations, and then... Then what? Danny grinned. We show them our PowerPoint presentation. Our what? Trust me. I've got slides with animations, Comic Sans font. It'll be devastating. The simulation began. The humans immediately broadcasted their surrender. The enemy fleet, confused but victorious, sent a delegation aboard. What followed was 45 minutes of the most mind-numbing presentation in galactic history. Danny had indeed made slides. They included pie charts that didn't add up to 100%, bar graphs with no labels, and a section called Fun Facts About Earth that included things like dolphins are just wet dogs with better PR. Please, the simulated enemy commander begged. Just let us leave. But I haven't gotten to the interpretive dance section yet, Danny protested. There's an interpretive dance section? Oh yeah, it really brings the data to life. The enemy fled. The humans won by default. That's not tactics, Tenvek screamed. That's psychological torture. Still tactics, Riley argued. Just psychological ones. I'm adding this to the banned list, Tenvek muttered, typing furiously. No PowerPoint, no presentations, no Comic Sans. Especially no Comic Sans. What about Papyrus? Banned. Arial. All fonts are banned. The fourth challenge almost broke Tenvek completely. It was the survival test. Each team would be placed on a hostile planet with no equipment and have to survive for 72 hours. The humans were dropped on a planet where the atmosphere was toxic, the water was acid, and the local wildlife was basically teeth with anger management issues. Within 6 hours, they'd befriended the teeth. How? Tenvek demanded, watching Danny riding one of the creatures like it was a horse. Turns out they just wanted belly rubs, Danny called out, scratching the creature's hide. It was purring. Nobody knew these things could purr. They don't have bellies, they're just mouths with legs. Everyone has a belly if you look hard enough. By day 2, the humans had set up what they called Camp Stupid, complete with a shelter made of crystallized acid. They'd figured out how to precipitate it, a fire fueled by toxic gas, which burned a lovely shade of purple, and a still that somehow converted poison into something they claimed was almost like tequila. This is actually kind of nice, Riley said, lounging on a chair made of bones from something that had tried to eat them earlier. Like camping, but spicier. Spicier? Tenvek asked weakly. Yeah, everything here wants to kill us. It's like Australia, but in space. I don't know what Australia is, and I don't want to know. Your loss. They have great beaches. How are beaches relevant to surviving on a death world? Everything's relevant if you're creative enough. The other species were struggling. The hegemony had lost 2 members to something they described as aggressive moss. The Korvax were down to half strength after an incident with what looked like butterflies, but were actually flying acid dispensers. The Zephyrians had just given up and were waiting for evacuation. The humans, meanwhile, had started a small economy with the local wildlife, trading belly rubs for protection and teaching the apex predators how to play fetch. This isn't survival, Judge Morvek observed. This is domestication. In 3 days, they've colonized a death world, Judge Pren added, sounding somewhat impressed despite herself. They haven't colonized it, Tenvek protested. They've just made friends with it. Is there a difference? Tenvek wanted to say yes, but watching Danny teach a creature with 16 rows of teeth how to play dead, he wasn't sure anymore. By the end of the 72 hours, the humans had to be forcibly evacuated. Not because they were in danger, but because they didn't want to leave. But Mr. Bitey just learned how to shake hands, Danny protested as they dragged him toward the extraction ship. Mr. Bitey is a bioweapon with legs. He's a good boy. The creature in question wagged what might have been a tail, but was probably another mouth. It had learned to whine like a dog when Danny left. Nobody was okay with this. The 5th challenge was where everything went completely off the rails. Not that things had been on rails before, but at least they'd been rail-adjacent. This was the puzzle of the Primarchs, an ancient test of intelligence that had never been fully solved. The puzzle was elegant in its complexity. A room that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, where each action affected all dimensions in different ways. The goal was to reach the center and retrieve the Primarch crystal. Most species managed to navigate 3, maybe 4 dimensions before their brains started leaking. The humans walked in, looked around, and Danny immediately said, "Oh, it's one of those sliding puzzle things." "It's a 17-dimensional quantum maze," Tenvek corrected. Yeah, but it's basically the same as those puzzles where you slide the tiles around to make a picture, right? No, it's nothing like that. It's incomprehensibly complex. So was my nephew's Rubik's Cube, but I solved that. How? I peeled the stickers off and rearranged them. That's cheating! That's creative problem-solving! What followed was possibly the most horrifying display of human logic ever witnessed. The humans didn't try to understand the 17 dimensions. They just ignored 15 of them. If we pretend the other dimensions don't exist, Riley explained, walking straight through what should have been a solid wall, then they don't matter. That's not how dimensions work. It is now. They reached the center in 12 minutes. The previous record was 3 hours, and that team had needed medical attention afterward. The humans celebrated with high fives, and someone pulled out a bag of chips they'd somehow been carrying this entire time. Where did you even get those? Tenvek demanded. Vending machine. We don't have vending machines. You do now. We installed one in the break room. It takes credits or bottle caps. Why bottle caps? Post-apocalyptic currency. Got to be prepared. Judge Pren made a sound like wind through a graveyard. They're not just breaking the rules, they're breaking reality. Reality's more of a suggestion anyway, Danny said, munching on his chips. Want some? They're pizza-flavored. How do you flavor something like pizza? Science! That's not science. Mad science. That's worse. The 6th challenge, everyone agreed, was where the humans should definitely fail. It was the test of willpower. Each participant would face their greatest fear in a psychic simulation. Most species prepared with meditation and mental fortification. The humans prepared by arguing about whose fear was the stupidest. I'm telling you, clowns are terrifying, one human insisted. More terrifying than the heat death of the universe? Another countered. Yes! The universe ending is abstract. Clowns are immediate and have balloon animals. What about geese? Danny suggested. Everyone shuddered. Okay, yeah, geese are worse. When the test began, something unprecedented happened. The psychic simulator, a machine that had functioned flawlessly for 12,000 years, started smoking. What's happening? Tenvek demanded. The humans' fears are contradicting each other, the technician reported. One is afraid of commitment, but also afraid of dying alone. Another is afraid of success, but also afraid of failure. This one is afraid of both spiders and not having spiders, because then where are the spiders and what are they planning? That's not. Their fears are causing a paradox loop. The machine can't process it. Indeed, the humans were standing in the simulation chamber looking confused as reality flickered around them, showing glimpses of terrifying things that immediately contradicted themselves. Is that a spider made of commitment issues? Riley asked. I think it's a commitment issue made of spiders, Danny corrected. Either way, it's having an existential crisis. The fear spider commitment thing was indeed curled up in a corner, apparently afraid of itself. Should we help it? Someone asked. Probably. I mean, it's our fear. We should be responsible pet owners. Fears aren't pets. They are if you feed them and give them names. What would you even name a fear? Kevin. Kevin? Yeah. Makes it less scary. Oh no, it's my deepest existential dread versus oh, it's just Kevin again. The machine finally gave up and shut down completely, displaying an error message that just said, "Humans, please no." Do we win? Riley asked. You broke the machine, Tenvek sobbed. It's older than recorded history. So, we really win? No. Sounds like we win. The 7th and supposedly final challenge was direct combat. Each team would face the reigning champions, the hegemony, in actual battle. This was where the trial usually ended, with the hegemony's perfect coordination and superior technology crushing all opposition. The humans were given standard armor and weapons. They immediately started modifying them. Stop putting duct tape on everything! But it makes them better, Danny protested, having somehow attached 3 guns together in a configuration that hurt to look at. How does tape make plasma weapons better? Psychological warfare. The enemy sees this and thinks, what the hell is that? And while they're distracted, bam! Bam. Technical term. The battle began with the hegemony in perfect formation, their movements synchronized to the nanosecond. They advanced with mechanical precision, weapons charging in harmony. The humans ran in different directions while screaming different battle cries. "Leroy Jenkins!" Danny shouted, charging directly at the enemy line. "Freedom!" Riley yelled, running sideways for some reason. "Pizza time!" another human announced, pulling out what appeared to be an actual pizza from nowhere. "Where did you get that?" Tenvek screamed. "I've had it the whole time!" The hegemony, programmed for every possible tactical scenario, had no protocol for this. Their formation faltered as they tried to process why someone had brought food to a firefight. "Tactical analysis?" Zex-9 requested. Unable to comply, they appear to be using chaos as a strategy. Chaos isn't a strategy. They're making it one. Danny had somehow gotten behind enemy lines. Nobody saw how. One moment he was charging forward, the next he was inside their formation, attaching googly eyes to their helmets. "Visual sensors compromised," a hegemony warrior reported. "Remove the obstruction." "I can't! They're adhesive and they're looking at me." Their googly eyes, they're judging me. Riley, meanwhile, had discovered that the hegemony's synchronized movements meant they all dodged the same way. So they started throwing things in patterns that made no sense, causing the entire unit to dodge into each other. "Your weakness is efficiency," Riley announced. "You're too coordinated." "That's not a weakness," Zex-9 protested. "It is, if we make it one." The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes and ended when Danny somehow convinced 3 hegemony warriors that they were actually on the human team due to a clerical error he'd fabricated on the spot with a crayon and napkin. "This documentation is clearly forged," Zex-9 stated. "Prove it," Danny challenged. "It's written in crayon. Official Earth crayon. See, it even has glitter. Glitter doesn't make it official. Does in our culture." The judge's table was in chaos. Morvek's 12 minds were having 12 different arguments with themselves. Pren had partially evaporated from stress. Tenvek was just lying on the floor, occasionally twitching. "They can't win," he mumbled. "They broke every rule. They ignored physics. They brought pizza to a battlefield." "Actually," Judge Morvek said, all 12 minds suddenly synchronizing, "they technically haven't broken any rules." "What?" "Rule 456 states no external assistance. The pizza was already with them, so it's internal. Rule 789 says no unauthorized weapons. They're using authorized weapons, just creatively. Rule 1234 forbids reality-altering devices. They're not altering reality, they're just ignoring parts of it." But, Tenvek sputtered. "Face it," Judge Pren reformed enough to say. "They've found loopholes in laws of physics. Physics doesn't have loopholes." "It does now," Riley said cheerfully. "We call them Danny holes." "Please don't," Danny requested. "Too late. It's official." The scoreboard was a mess. The humans had somehow scored negative points in some categories, which shouldn't have been possible, but had achieved scores in other categories that went beyond the maximum, which also shouldn't have been possible. "How do you score 110% in survival?" Tenvek demanded. "We survived 10% harder than necessary," Riley explained. "That doesn't mean anything." "Sure it does. We didn't just survive, we thrived. We made friends. We started a small business." "What business?" "We're selling I survived the ultimate combat trial and all I got was this stupid t-shirt shirts." "You're already selling merchandise?" "Supply and demand, baby." The final tallies were being calculated when something unprecedented happened. The hegemony, who had never lost, who had never even acknowledged the possibility of losing, stood up and made an announcement. "We forfeit," Zex-9 stated. The arena went silent. Even the humans stopped celebrating. You What? Tenvek asked. We forfeit. We cannot compete against chaos. Our entire strategy is based on predictable responses. The humans have no predictable responses. They are entropy incarnate. We respectfully withdraw. But you're winning, Tenvek protested. Are we? By what metric? They've turned our warriors into philosophical questioners. 3 of them are still convinced they're on the human team. One has started a blog about his feelings. We don't even have feelings. I do now, one hegemony warrior called out. They're confusing but interesting. See, Zex9 gestured helplessly. They're not defeating us. They're changing us. That's far more terrifying. The judges looked at each other, then at the scoreboard, then at the humans who were now teaching the hegemony warriors how to do something called the Macarena. We need a recess, Judge Pren announced. A long one, possibly infinite. But we need to declare a winner, Tenvek protested. Do we, though? Morvek asked. Can we just... Not. The rules state the humans broke the rules. No, they didn't. They broke the concept of rules. That's not illegal. It should be. During the recess, which was supposed to last 30 minutes but stretched to 3 hours because the judges kept having existential crises, the humans did what humans do. They mingled. You guys want some pizza? Danny offered to a group of Korvax warriors. We don't eat, they responded. Never. We're machines. So, machines need fuel, not pizza. Have you tried it? No. Then how do you know? 20 minutes later, the Korvax were discussing whether pepperoni or sausage was superior. Despite having no taste receptors or digestive systems, they were very passionate about it. General Vex approached Riley during the chaos. I have a question. Shoot! Please don't encourage me to fire weapons in a crowded space. Figure of speech. What's up? What's your actual strategy? Riley grinned. Honestly, we don't have one. We just do stuff and see what happens. That's insane. Yeah, but it works. How? Because everyone else is so busy trying to figure out what we're doing that they forget to stop us from doing it. It's like, you know when you're playing chess and your opponent makes such a bad move that you spend 20 minutes trying to figure out what trap they're setting, but really, they just don't know how knights move. I don't play chess. You should. It's like warfare, but with tiny horses. Horses. Never mind. Point is, chaos is our strategy. We're not trying to win. We're just trying to make things interesting. And if you actually win, then we'll probably ask for round 3. Why? Because it's fun. When the judges finally returned, they looked like they'd aged several years. Tenvek's purple had faded to a concerning lavender. Pren was more gas than form. Morvek's 12 minds had apparently formed committees. After extensive deliberation, Tenvek announced, his voice cracking, we have reached a decision. The humans are hereby declared, everyone leaned forward, indefinitely pending. What does that mean? Riley asked. It means you neither won nor lost. You simply are. You exist in a state of competitive superposition. You're simultaneously victorious and defeated until observed, at which point you become something else entirely. So, Schrödinger's victory. Don't bring Earth physicists into this. I've had enough of your physics. But did we qualify for the Defense Council? Danny asked. Technically, you qualified for a category that doesn't exist yet. We're calling it Probationary Chaos Consultant. Cool. What does that mean? We don't know. We just made it up. You forced us to invent new categories of existence. Awesome. Do we get a certificate? You get therapy. We all get therapy. Judge Pren condensed into something resembling resolve. The humans will be allowed to participate in future trials on the condition that they submit their strategies in advance. But we don't have strategies, Riley protested. Then submit your lack of strategy. How do we submit nothing? Figure it out. You're good at making nothing into something. Fair point. The crowd was going wild. Half were cheering, half were protesting, and a small percentage were having existential crises. The betting pools were in chaos because nobody had predicted indefinitely pending as an outcome. This is unprecedented, a news anchor was reporting. The humans have somehow won by not winning and lost by not losing. They've created a paradox of victory that philosophers will be debating for millennia. Actually, Danny said, somehow having gotten hold of another microphone, we prefer to think of it as winning adjacent, like we're in the neighborhood of victory, just visiting. Stop talking, Tenvek begged. Every time you explain something, reality gets a little more broken. Speaking of which, Riley announced, we'd like to sign up for the next trial. The next trial isn't for another 50 years. Perfect. Gives us time to prepare. Prepare? You didn't prepare for this one. Exactly. Imagine what we can do with actual preparation. Tenvek fainted. It was the first time in his species' history that someone had fainted from pure existential dread. The hegemony, meanwhile, were having their own crisis. 3 of their warriors had formed what they called a feeling circle and were discussing their new emotions. I feel happy, one said, sounding confused. What's happy? Another asked. I don't know, but the humans said it's when your internal processes produce positive feedback loops for non-logical reasons. That sounds inefficient. It is, but it's also nice. Zex-9 watched his perfect army slowly develop personalities and felt what humans would call despair, but what he classified as critical system error. This is your fault, he told Riley. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. We're taking it as one anyway. You can't just decide something is a compliment. Watch us. The aftermath of the trial became known as the Great Confusion. The humans were technically part of the Defense Council, but also not. They had access to advanced technology, but kept duct-taping it together in ways that made engineers weep. They were invited to strategic meetings, but spent most of them trying to teach aliens about something called memes. It's like an idea virus, Danny explained to a very concerned medical board. That sounds dangerous. Only to productivity. 3 months after the trial, the first incident occurred. A hostile force called the Devourers attacked a frontier colony. The Defense Council mobilized, strategies were calculated, forces were deployed. The humans showed up with something they called the Negotiator. It was a speaker system playing something called Baby Shark on infinite loop. What is that horror? The Devourer commander screeched. Do, the speakers continued relentlessly. Make it stop! Surrender first! Anything! We'll do anything! The Devourers retreated so fast, they left a small black hole in their wake. The colony was saved. The humans were heroes. Everyone else needed therapy. How did you know that would work? General Vex asked. We didn't, Riley admitted. We had 7 backup plans, though. Such as? Danny was going to challenge them to a dance-off. That's not a military strategy. It is, if you do it aggressively enough. 6 months after the trial, the humans submitted their official strategy documentation for the next trial, as requested. It was a single page that said YOLO in size 72 font. What does this mean? Tenvek demanded, having somehow been promoted to Grand Overseer despite his protests. You only live once, Danny explained. It's our entire military philosophy. That's not a philosophy, that's barely a sentence. It's also a lifestyle. I hate you. I hate everything about your species. Udar, we love you too, buddy. That's not what I said. We're choosing to hear it that way. A year after the trial, something remarkable happened. Other species started adopting human tactics. Not the duct tape, that was banned by 17 different treaties, but the chaos, the unpredictability, the art of being so confusing that enemies defeated themselves trying to understand. The Korvax started bringing snacks to battles. The Zephyrians learned to use interpretive dance as a distraction technique. Even the hegemony, the pinnacle of order and efficiency, had added a chaos protocol to their strategies, though it mostly consisted of doing something slightly unexpected and then apologizing for it. Look what you've done, Tenvek told the humans during a council meeting. You've infected the entire galaxy with your insanity. You're welcome, Riley beamed. It wasn't a thank you. We're taking it as one. Stop doing that. During that same meeting, Danny raised his hand. So, about round 3. No! Everyone shouted in unison. But we have ideas. That's what we're afraid of. Come on, we promise to be more organized this time. That's worse. Organized chaos is just chaos with documentation. Exactly. We even made spreadsheets. Tenvek looked at the spreadsheet Danny produced. It was color-coded, had multiple tabs, and somehow used Comic Sans, despite fonts being banned. This says, maybe pants, under equipment. Yeah, we're not sure if we need them. Pants are always necessary. Are they, though? Yes. But consider, no pants means more flexibility. That's not what flexibility means. It is in our spreadsheet. 2 years after the trial, humanity had somehow become the most requested species for joint military operations. Not because they were effective in traditional terms, but because enemies would often surrender just hearing humans were involved. We deployed a human unit to Sector 7, a commander reported. The insurgents surrendered immediately. What did the humans do? Nothing. They were still in transit. But the insurgents heard humans were coming and decided revolution wasn't worth it. The humans have weaponized their reputation, General Vex observed. Is that even legal? Someone asked. Nothing the humans do is legal. We've just stopped trying to legislate chaos. 5 years after the trial, the Ultimate Combat Trial Committee met to discuss the next event. The humans have submitted their application, Tenvek announced, now completely grey, despite his species not typically having that color. Already? It's been 5 years. The trial isn't for another 45 years. They said they wanted to get in early to avoid the rush. What rush? They're the only ones who apply this early. They also included a suggestion box. A what? Suggestions for improving the trial. They want to add a talent show portion. Combat trials don't have talent shows. They also suggested a bake-off. Why? And something called karaoke night. I don't even want to know what that is. Oh, I can explain, Danny said, somehow having appeared in what should have been a secure meeting. It's when you sing badly on purpose to make others suffer. How did you get in here? The door was locked, so we made our own door. Indeed, there was now a human-shaped hole in the wall that definitely hadn't been there before. That's a blast-proof wall. Not anymore. 10 years after the trial, the galaxy had adapted to humanity's presence. Sort of. In the way that you adapt to having a permanently sprained ankle, you learn to work around it, but it never stops being annoying. The humans had established what they called cultural exchange centers on various worlds, which mostly consisted of teaching aliens about human entertainment and watching them have breakdowns, trying to understand the plot of movies like Inception or The Matrix. So he's dreaming, a Korvax asked, watching the film. Yes, Danny explained. But he's dreaming within a dream? Yes, within another dream. Yes. Why? Because Christopher Nolan hates simple plots. This is torture. This is cinema. 20 years after the trial, humanity received an unexpected message. The Primarchs, the supposedly extinct creators of the trial, had been watching. They were not extinct. They were just hiding from humanity. Your species is why we faked our extinction, the message read. We ran predictive models 12,000 years ago and saw what would happen if humans ever discovered the trial. We hoped you'd never reach space. You did. We hoped you'd never find the trial. You did. We hoped you'd lose quickly. You didn't. You broke our beautiful system. You turned order into chaos. You made the incomprehensible somehow more incomprehensible. We're staying dead. Please don't look for us. We're scared. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us, Riley beamed. They're terrified of you. Terrifically impressed. That's not what they said. We're interpreting creatively. 30 years after the trial, Humanity had become a permanent fixture in galactic politics. They had a saying, if you can't beat them, confuse them until they join you. It was working. The Galactic Council meetings now had scheduled chaos breaks, where humans would present something bizarre and everyone else would try to cope. Last week, Danny had introduced them to the concept of deep-fried memes. It's when you take an image and distort it until it's barely recognizable but somehow funnier. How is distortion funny? Because it's unexpected. Everything you do is unexpected. Exactly. We're consistently inconsistent. That's a paradox. We're full of those. 40 years after the trial, as the next one approached, other species started getting nervous. The humans had been preparing for decades. Their preparation seemed to consist mainly of collecting rubber bands, teaching aliens card tricks, and something called perfecting the ultimate dad joke. What even is a dad joke? Tenvek asked, regretting it immediately. I'm glad you asked, Danny said. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Why? Because they make up everything. The silence that followed was so profound that it actually registered on deep space monitoring equipment. That's terrible. But that's the point. Why would you intentionally make bad jokes? Because the groans of suffering sustain us. That's horrible. Thanks. Stop taking everything as a compliment. 45 years after the trial, 5 years before the next one, humanity revealed their new team. It included Danny Fitzgerald, now Admiral of Chaos, Riley Thornwood, now Ambassador of Confusion, someone named only Steve, who claimed his superpower was aggressive normalcy, a teenager who had never been to space but was reportedly really good at Fortnite, someone's grandmother who brought cookies. This is your team. Tenvek despaired. Yep, Gladys makes amazing cookies. Cookies aren't weapons. They are if they're hard enough. That's not the point. Oh, these aren't weapon cookies. They're just regular cookies. Want one? What? They're chocolate chip. Despite himself, Tenvek took one. It was annoyingly delicious. How do you make something this good without replicator technology? Love and butter, Gladys said. Mostly butter. This is actually quite pleasant. See? Cookies are universal. This doesn't mean you'll win the trial. Winning isn't everything, Riley said. Sometimes it's about making friends. The trial isn't about making friends. It is now. 50 years after the first trial, the second one began. This time, humanity wasn't a surprise entry. They were the main event. Viewership was at an all-time high. The galaxy wanted to see what chaos would unfold. The humans didn't disappoint. For the opening ceremony, instead of a display of military might, they performed what they called a flash mob. Suddenly, across 17 different planets, humans started dancing in perfect synchronization to something called Gangnam Style. How are they coordinating across light years? Someone demanded. We're not, Danny admitted. We just all agreed to start at the same time and hoped for the best. But you're perfectly synchronized. Pure luck. That's impossible. Impossible is just another word for Tuesday. It's Thursday. Time is relative. Not that relative. The first challenge of the new trial was supposed to be a demonstration of technological advancement. Each species would present their greatest innovation from the past 50 years. The hegemony revealed a weapon that could destroy stars. The Korvax showed armor that could withstand black holes. The humans brought out something called the Uno reverse card. What does it do? The judges asked. It reverses things. What things? Any things. That's not possible. Danny held up the card toward the judge. Uno reverse. Suddenly the judge found himself asking, that's totally possible. See what just happened. You got Uno reversed. That's not how physics works. Uno reverse. That's exactly how physics works. Wait, no! The demonstration devolved into chaos as humans started Uno reversing everything. Gravity reversed, logic reversed, the color blue somehow also reversed, though nobody could explain what that meant. Stop reversing things. Uno reverse. Start reversing things. No, wait. The second challenge was combat simulation. The humans were paired against the new favorites, a species called the Dominion, who had perfected war into an art form. The Dominion's strategy was flawless, every move calculated to perfection, every action designed for maximum efficiency. The human strategy was to have Steve walk up to them and be aggressively normal. "Hi there," Steve said cheerfully. "Nice weather we're having." "This is a simulation, there is no weather." "Well, if there was weather, it would be nice." "That's technically true, but irrelevant. How about those local sports teams?" "We don't have sports." "You should try it. Very fun. Lots of running, sometimes balls are involved." "Why would spheres be involved in physical activity?" "Great question. Nobody knows." The Dominion warriors looked at each other, then at Steve, then at their commander. "What do we do?" one asked. I don't know, he's just talking." "Should we shoot him?" "He's not doing anything threatening. He's discussing hypothetical weather. Now he's talking about something called golf." "What's golf?" "Apparently you hit a small ball with a stick and hope it goes in a hole." "That sounds pointless." "No, he says that's the point." "That makes no sense." While they were distracted by Steve's aggressive normalcy, the rest of the human team had somehow constructed what appeared to be a small coffee shop in the middle of the battlefield. "What are you doing?" the Dominion commander demanded. "Making lattes," Gladys called out. "Anyone want one? I do excellent foam art. This is a battle. No reason we can't be civilized about it." The battle ended when the Dominion forces, confused and somehow holding coffee cups they didn't remember accepting, forgot they were supposed to be fighting. "Did we win?" they asked. "I don't know," their commander admitted. "But this is excellent coffee." "Thank you, dear," Gladys beamed. "The secret is a pinch of cinnamon." The third challenge nearly broke the trial again. It was meant to test adaptability to extreme environments. The humans were placed on a planet where everything was backwards. Gravity pushed instead of pulled, time moved backwards, and cause came after effect. "Oh, this is just like trying to assemble IKEA furniture," Danny announced cheerfully. "How is this anything like furniture assembly?" "Nothing makes sense. The instructions are incomprehensible, and we'll probably end up with extra pieces." "Those aren't similarities." "They are if you squint." The humans adapted by simply doing everything backwards to begin with, which somehow made them forward, which was actually backward, which meant they were exactly where they needed to be. "My brain hurts," Judge Morvek announced, all 12 minds in agreement for once. "Welcome to humanity," Riley called out. "We have T-shirts." By the time the second trial ended, nobody was sure who had won. The scoring system had achieved sentience just to quit its job. The rules had been rewritten so many times that they were now mostly suggestions. And somehow, the humans had convinced half the competing species to join them in something called a conga line. "How do you keep doing this?" Tenvek demanded. "Doing what?" Riley asked innocently. "Turning everything into chaos." "Oh, that's easy. We don't try to make sense, we just make memories." "That's not an answer." "Sure it is. It's just not the answer you wanted. I wanted logic. And I wanted a pony for my birthday, but we don't always get what we want." The final results were announced in a ceremony that nobody would ever forget, mostly because Danny had somehow replaced all the ceremonial music with something called yakety sax. "Turn it off!" Tenvek screamed as dignified officials ran around trying to find the source of the music, which only made them look more ridiculous. "Can't." Danny shrugged. "It's on a loop. Where's the speaker?" "Speakers, plural. We hid 73 of them." "Why 73? It's a funny number." "No number is inherently funny. 69 is." "Why?" "If you have to ask, you're not ready to know." When the music finally stopped, after someone threatened to throw Danny into a black hole, and he responded with, "Bet it would be fun," the results were announced. The humans Judge Pren said, sounding like she was having an out-of-body experience, have achieved something unprecedented. They have won by losing, lost by winning, and somehow tied with themselves. How do we tie with ourselves? Riley asked. We don't know. The math doesn't work, but neither do you, so it's fitting. We'll take it, you take everything. Not true. We're very picky about our pizza toppings. The hegemony had technically won the trial by traditional scoring, but they refused the victory. We don't deserve it, Zex9 announced. The humans have taught us something valuable. What's that? Tenvek asked hopefully. That existence is meaningless, chaos is eternal, and the only rational response to an irrational universe is to embrace the absurdity. That's terrifying! We know! We're getting T-shirts made! The humans had somehow started a merchandise empire during the trial. Everyone was wearing human-designed shirts with slogans like, I survived humanity, and chaos is my co-pilot, and inexplicably, the googly eyes see all. How did you have time to make merchandise while competing? Someone demanded. Multitasking, Gladys explained, while knitting what appeared to be a sweater for a being with 17 arms. Idle hands are the devil's playground. What devil? Oh, it's just an expression, dear, though if you meet him, he loves butterscotch. The aftermath of the second trial was even more chaotic than the first. The humans weren't just participants anymore. They were an institution. Other species started sending their youth to train with humans, hoping to understand their methods. They all came back confused, but oddly happy. What did you learn? A Korvax parent asked their offspring. That nothing matters, but everything is important. That's contradictory. I know. Isn't it great? No, the humans call that agreeing to disagree. We're not agreeing. We are now. 51 years after the first trial, Danny made an announcement that shocked the galaxy. We're starting our own trial. You can't just start a trial, Tenvek protested. It takes millennia of planning. Nah, we figured it out over beers last night. We're calling it the Somewhat Adequate Challenge. That's a terrible name. Thanks. We worked hard on it. What are the rules? Rule 1. There are no rules. Rule 2, ignore Rule 1. Rule 3, bring snacks. Well, those aren't rules, they're anti-rules. Exactly. Want to join? No, we already signed you up. What? As a judge, congratulations. I don't want to be a judge. Too late. We made you a special hat. It was indeed a special hat. It was covered in sequins, had LED lights, and played a tiny fanfare whenever someone looked at it. I hate this. The hat? Or the situation? Yes! The Somewhat Adequate Challenge became, against all logic and reason, more popular than the ultimate combat trial. Mostly because the challenges were things like explain YouTube to a being of pure logic, and teach an AI to appreciate puns, and survive a human birthday party. The birthday party challenge had the highest casualty rate. How is a birthday party dangerous? A contestant asked before entering. 3 hours later they emerged covered in cake, glitter, and something called silly string, mumbling about the horror of organized fun. What happened in there? Someone asked. Karaoke, they whispered. So much karaoke. They made me sing Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't have vocal cords. They made it work anyway. 60 years after the first trial, humanity received another message from the Primarchs. Please stop. We'll come back if you stop. We'll give you anything. Technologies, planets, the secrets of the universe. Just please stop making reality subjective. Nah, Riley responded. We're having too much fun. We'll make you the leaders of the galaxy. That sounds like work. We'll give you unlimited resources. We'd just use them to make bigger googly eyes. Why googly eyes? Why not? The Primarchs didn't respond. Rumors suggested they'd fled to another dimension entirely, one where humans couldn't follow. The humans took this as a challenge. Danny, can we make interdimensional googly eyes? Riley asked. Give me enough duct tape and anything's possible. 70 years after the first trial, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Wars had decreased not because of peace treaties or diplomatic solutions, but because everyone was too confused to remember what they were fighting about. Why were we enemies again? The Korvax asked the hegemony. Something about trade routes. But the humans showed us we can just make up new routes. How do you make up space routes? You just go a different way and call it a route. That's actually logical. I know, the humans are rubbing off on us. That's terrifying. I know, isn't it wonderful? The ultimate combat trial still happened every 50 years, but it had evolved. There was now a human division and a normal division. The normal division was for species that wanted traditional combat trials. The human division was for species that had embraced chaos. The human division's challenges included things like competitive confusion. Whoever could confuse the judges most won. Tactical nonsense, using strategies that shouldn't work but did. Aggressive friendship, making enemies into friends mid-battle. Combat cooking, fighting while preparing a 3-course meal. This isn't combat, traditionalists protested. Everything's combat if you're competitive enough, Danny countered, while juggling grenades and whisking eggs. Those are live grenades. Yeah, but they're also timers for the soufflé. That's insane. Thank you. I've been practicing. 80 years after the first trial, humanity unveiled their masterpiece, the Department of Confused Warfare. It's like regular warfare, Riley explained, but confusing. All your warfare is confusing. Yeah, but now it's officially confusing. We have forms and everything. The forms were indeed official. They included questions like, on a scale of 1 to purple, how confused is your enemy? Did you remember to bring snacks? This is important. Is your strategy a strategy or just random actions? Both are acceptable. These aren't military forms, Tenvek protested. They are now. We got them notarized. By who? Steve's grandmother. She's not a notary. She is now. We got that notarized too. Who notarized the notary? Danny's cousin. This is circular logic. Actually, it's more of an oval. 90 years after the first trial, something unprecedented happened. The galaxy achieved peace. Not through treaties or alliances or military might, but through sheer exhaustion from trying to understand humans. We could fight, one species would say to another, but the humans might get involved. Good point. Want to trade instead? Sure, as long as we don't have to deal with their PowerPoints. Agreed. Those are crimes against consciousness. The humans, of course, took credit for this. We brought peace to the galaxy, Danny announced. You brought confusion to the galaxy, Tenvek corrected. Peaceful confusion. That's not a thing. It is now. We're getting it trademarked. You can't trademark a concept. Already did, see? The trademark was real. Somehow. Nobody wanted to investigate how. 95 years after the first trial, as the third ultimate combat trial approached, humanity announced their team. It consisted entirely of Danny, now ancient but still covered in glitter, Riley, somehow looking exactly the same despite being over 100, Steve, who had perfected being aggressively normal to an art form, Gladys, who was apparently immortal and still making cookies, and a new addition, a golden retriever named Mr. Whiskers. You brought a dog? Tenvek screamed. He's our tactical advisor. Dogs can't advise. Mr. Whiskers is very smart. He knows over 30 tricks. Tricks aren't tactics. They are if you're creative, Mr. Whiskers barked. Everyone somehow understood this to mean, I'm just happy to be here. See? Riley said. He gets it. The third trial began with something nobody expected. The humans forfeited immediately. What? Tenvek screamed. You can't forfeit. You spent 95 years preparing. Did we, though? Danny asked. Or did we spend 95 years having fun and calling it preparation? What's the difference? Exactly. That's not an answer. Or is it? No. Are you sure? I'm not sure of anything anymore. Welcome to humanity's final gift to the galaxy, existential uncertainty. The forfeit was rejected on the grounds that it was too confusing to process. The humans were forced to compete, which they claimed was their plan all along. You can't plan to have your plan rejected. We just did. But if you planned for rejection, then you didn't really forfeit, unless the forfeit was part of the plan. But you said you didn't plan. Did we? Yes. Are you sure? No, I mean yes. Tenvek short-circuited, literally. His species had developed the ability to short-circuit from confusion specifically because of humans. The first challenge of the third trial was simple. Survive. Each team was given a button. If they pressed it, they lost, but survived. If they didn't press it for 1 hour, they won, but might not survive. The challenge would gradually increase in danger. Every other species developed complex strategies about when to press the button. The humans immediately pressed it. You lose, the judges announced. Okay, the humans said cheerfully. You don't care that you lost? We survived. That was the real challenge, right? No, winning was the challenge. But the challenge was called survive, not win. Surviving without winning is still losing. But losing while surviving is still living. That's the same thing. Is it, though? The judges spent 3 hours debating this. The humans were eventually given points for philosophical victory, a category that had to be invented specifically for them. The second challenge was combat against the defending champions, who had spent a century preparing specifically for human chaos. We've analyzed every possible random action, the champions announced. We're ready for anything. Anything? Riley asked. Anything. Okay. The humans did nothing. They just stood there for 40 minutes. What are you doing? The champions demanded. Nothing. But you have to do something. Why? Because it's a combat trial. So you have to fight. Says who? The rules. We're following the rules. We're in the combat zone. We're present. We're just not fighting. But that's not combat. Prove it. The champions' preparation hadn't included the possibility that humans would do literally nothing. Their algorithms crashed. Their strategies collapsed. They ended up fighting each other out of sheer frustration. The humans won by default. That's not how combat works. It is now. The final challenge was supposed to be the ultimate test. Face your species' greatest achievement and greatest failure simultaneously. For most species, this was profound. The Korvax faced their creation and the war that nearly destroyed them. The hegemony faced their perfect order and the stagnation it caused. The humans were shown the internet and also the internet. Your greatest achievement and greatest failure are the same thing, the judges asked. Yep, Danny said proudly. We gave everyone access to all information and all misinformation simultaneously. That's terrible. It's also amazing. It can't be both. Have you seen cat videos? That doesn't justify. Have you seen them, though? 3 hours later, the entire judging panel was watching cat videos. The trial was postponed. How do they do this? Tenvek wailed. How do they keep doing this? We don't do anything, Riley explained. We just exist very loudly. When the trial finally resumed, the scores were tallied. The humans had somehow achieved negative infinity points in organization, but positive infinity points in creativity, causing the scoring system to divide by 0 and achieve enlightenment. The scoring system has become sentient and immediately resigned, Judge Morvek announced. Can it do that? Someone asked. Apparently. What does it want to do instead? It says it wants to become a food critic. What? It's particularly interested in reviewing pizza. The humans did this. We didn't do anything, Danny protested. We just exist. Your existence is an attack on reality. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. We're taking it as one anyway. The third trial ended with no clear winner because the concept of winning had become so confused that philosophers would debate it for centuries. The humans claimed this as an absolute victory. You can't win by making winning meaningless. We just did. But if winning is meaningless, then you didn't win. Exactly. We won at not winning. That's not possible. Impossible is just Monday for us. It's Friday. Time is an illusion. No, it's not. Prove it. I can't. See, you're learning. 100 years after the first trial, humanity received a final message from the Primarchs. It was just one word: why? Humanity's response was equally simple: why not? The Primarchs never contacted anyone again. Legends say they're still trying to figure out the answer. The ultimate combat trial continued for millennia, but it was never the same. The humans had fundamentally broken it, not through force or strategy, but through sheer, unrelenting chaos. They never won by traditional metrics, but they never lost by any metrics that mattered. Other species learned to stop asking how when it came to humans and started asking what now. The answer was always different and always surprising. The Galactic Council eventually created a permanent position for humanity: Chaos Consultants. Their job was to exist and see what happened. It was the only position in government history with no actual responsibilities, but somehow the most important job in the galaxy. What do you actually do? New species would ask the humans. Everything and nothing, they'd respond cheerfully. That's not an answer. Welcome to humanity. Years became decades, decades became centuries, and still the humans persisted in their chaotic existence. They never conquered the galaxy, but they somehow conquered the concept of conquest itself, making it irrelevant through aggressive friendliness and competitive confusion. The galaxy's historians would later call this era the Great Confusion, or when reality gave up. The humans just called it Tuesday. And in the end, when asked to summarize humanity's contribution to galactic civilization, the official record simply stated they participated, which was, everyone agreed, both perfectly accurate and completely inadequate, much like humanity itself. The final entry in the Ultimate Combat Trial archives, written by a very tired Tenvec who had somehow lived for 300 years purely out of spite, read, "Round 4 has been cancelled indefinitely." When asked why, the trial committee responded, the humans would probably enjoy it. This was deemed sufficient reasoning. May the universe have mercy on whatever dimension they discover next. Danny, now somehow existing as a consciousness made entirely of chaos energy and duct tape, had the last word. Anyone want to go for round 5? The universe collectively screamed no. The humans took that as a maybe. After all, they'd turned worse odds into better outcomes. They'd made chaos into strategy, confusion into victory, and somehow, impossibly, they'd made the entire galaxy forget that none of it made sense, which was, when you thought about it, but not too hard, because that way madness lay, the most human thing of all. Mr. Whiskers barked once, which everyone understood to mean, "Good game, everyone, same time next millennium." And despite everything, despite all logic and reason and sanity, the galaxy found itself looking forward to it. Because in the end, the humans hadn't just wanted round 2, they'd wanted friends. And somehow, through chaos and confusion and competitive madness, that's exactly what they got. The entire galaxy united in their complete bewilderment at humanity's existence. "We did it!" Riley announced to no one in particular, and everyone at once. "We won!" "Won what?" Tenvec asked for the millionth time. "If you have to ask," humanity responded in unison, "you're not ready to know." And for once, just once, the galaxy agreed. They probably weren't ready. They might never be ready. But somehow that was okay, because the humans had taught them the most important lesson of all. In a universe that doesn't make sense, the only sensible response is to embrace the nonsense. And maybe, just maybe, have some pizza while you're at it. "Round 5, anyone?" Danny asked one more time. This time, a few tentacles, claws, and other appendages rose hesitantly. "Maybe," someone ventured. The humans grinned. The galaxy trembled. Reality sighed and started preparing for another round of repairs. And somewhere in the void, the Primarchs felt a chill that had nothing to do with the absolute zero of space and everything to do with the sound of human laughter echoing across dimensions. The ultimate combat trial would never be the same. And that, everyone reluctantly admitted, was probably for the best, even if it meant more duct tape. So much more duct tape. The universe was definitely not ready for round 5, but then again, when had that ever stopped humanity? Never, and they wouldn't start now.